Let's do just.
Okay, great. Thank you, Erkan.
Okay. So it would be great if I can see you again, because the two people which were just on screen before, the one which is not Daphne, and the nice young man, Semi is your name. If you could just put your image up again, would be really helpful, because it's much better to speak to real people than to photos. Thank you very much. So I wanted to know, did you do the assessment before that you have been? Yes, you did. Can you raise your out who did?
Yes.
Yeah. Um, are you happy with your result, or would you like to improve your result? Yes? Yeah? Okay. I don't ask your score. You don't have to share it here. I mean, it's a personal thing anyway. But we will speak in the next half hour about charisma. And I will share with you what are the main components of charisma, so that you understand how is this composed. Yeah, how can you basically build it? And you will also learn 3 tools, 3 things that you can do right away, which I will share with you, which will help you to increase this level of charisma and to nourish the ingredients of charisma. Is that interesting? Yeah? Okay. So let me say 2 or 3 words about myself. You have certainly seen it in the invitation. There was this whole text about me. To make it relatively short, my name is Ulrike Seminati. I am German, based in Zurich, living for private reasons in France. I'm kind of navigating in between these 3 countries all the time. And I'm today a communication consultant and coach. But I've worked in the corporate industry for over 20 years, and so I know very well how leaders feel when they have to communicate in the corporate world. And I know that this is for many leaders quite a difficult task, or a task that they don't like very much. Nonetheless, it's a very, very important skill, and we all know that, and we communicate day in, day out, every single second. Even now, you communicate with me, even if you're saying nothing, because we all have always body language, nonverbal cues that are happening, and so there's communication happening all the time. So what I'm doing today is I help leaders to level up their profiles so that they can communicate with more charisma, with more authenticity. Because I believe that leaders like that can shape a culture that is this famous high-performing culture that we can find that the companies basically want to have. And it all happens when good communication happens. And good communication comes from the inside. And this is why I call this communicating with charisma, because it's not just communicating with impact, having the best messages ready and these things. There's something on the inside that needs to happen so that it works really, really well. So that's what I'm doing with my clients every day. And today I'm happy to have this little workshop with you. So let's now have a look into what actually is. No, let's start maybe first of all, why is charisma important? So charisma is a true performance booster on 2 different levels when it comes to work. The first one is many studies have shown that people who are more charismatic have far better results in their own performance reviews. So they have a better image with their leaders, and this is why they have a better career outlook overall, much more chances to get this fantastic new project, for example. And on the other side, it's also great when you have a leader that is charismatic, because leaders who are charismatic build teams that build greater trust, a higher sense of belonging, and sometimes even a strong common purpose. And by this, charismatic leaders shape teams that are engaged and that go the famous extra mile. This famous extra mile that all the companies want from their employees, and the employees say, oh my God, another extra mile. But if you have a charismatic leader who is truly inspiring you, then obviously you're ready to go this extra mile, and you do it with pleasure, and the whole team follows rather easily than with a leader who also has to really push all the time, because there's not this energy around. How many of you would like to work in a team where you have a charismatic leader? And how many of you would be like a charismatic leader? Would like to be like that? How many of you are leading a team actually? Do we having a team? You have? Okay, that's good to know. This is no good or bad. It's just to understand a little bit how that works. So let's now have a look into the definition of charisma. And I have not brought up a definition from the dictionary. But as we are a really small group, I think we can just make a little interactive. And what comes to your mind if somebody asks you, what is charisma? What would you say? Would someone want to start?
To
Erkan, you look like you have it on.
Yes, it is difficult to describe actually without using words, comments, just personal behaviors give confidence to others as a leader.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Someone else? Yeah?
Could it be the attitude that is seen or understood by the other people around you? Even if you don't say something, the attitude that you give outside.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Someone else?
Sharing vision, I think. Vision is important for charismatic leader to see the future in the right sense.
Okay. Someone else? I don't know if two others are around.
It's a state of our body and our physical view, or sometimes our ideas, our thinkings. So,
Yeah. Okay. We have someone joining. Natalie, is that right? Welcome. We are just having a little round to say what we think charisma is. I don't know, Betul, are you around? We don't know. Let's continue then. So we were just introducing what actually charisma is. When I'm asked what charisma is, I always say it's authentically radiating from the inside. So after all, charisma is an inside job. Do you believe that people are born with charisma? That it's a question of how you're born? Do you think that? Yeah? Somehow? They're not. So this is, I can tell you right away. Even people who seem to be charismatic right from the start, early on, they have somehow learned it in their upbringing, how their parents treated them and these kind of things. They have also learned it, maybe very early on, but they have learned it. And everybody can learn to be charismatic. No matter how old you are, you can always learn to be charismatic. It's a matter of skills. If you look back to the story of Steve Jobs, for example, or Barack Obama, known charismatic speakers, very different styles, but still known as charismatic speakers, they were not charismatic at all when they started their career, at all. Yeah, so you can really learn that. It's something that can come from the inside. So now let's have a look at these, how it's hanging together, the different elements of charisma. How many of you have heard about the LinkedIn course that is also called Communicating with Charisma? Some of you heard of that? Because sometimes people speak to me about it, that's why I ask. It's a nice little course, very superficial, you don't learn a lot, but the person who is leading it, she's fantastic. She has much more to say than she has had the right probably to say in this LinkedIn course. So charisma is basically a balance between two elements. So on the one hand, you can read that well, it's not too reflecting. There's written power, yeah? Power. Power can also mean competencies, depends, yeah? So it's what you know, it's all your knowledge, it's your expert knowledge, for example. It's the way how you stand up when you present something you're an expert of, for example. And on the other end, there is warmth. So very different, yeah, from power. And in between, there is charisma somewhere. So that means, imagine you're someone who is very competent. When you present something at work, you're very bold, you have a lot of knowledge, you present a lot of facts, you're even very sure about yourself and all of that. But if you don't show warmth, but are just only, let's say, very competent, yeah, showing all your skills and all of that, people might perceive you as someone who is very distant, they cannot approach you, they will not connect, and they might even think that you're arrogant, and so they will not have this feeling that you're charismatic. On the other side, if you're warm and empathetic and you look into the eyes of the people, you listen to them, you're always the person who is happy to help, for example, but you're not able really to show your competencies because you shy away from speaking about yourself maybe, or about what you're capable of doing, then people will see you as someone who is really helpful and who supports them, and they will come to ask you for support, for example, but they will not see you as someone who is charismatic. So somewhere in between here, having the warmth and the power at the same time, and having this somewhere in the middle, like the right balance in between, this is when people start to perceive others as charismatic. So it's quite interesting that these two different, I'm standing here, that these two different things and the balance between these two things make a difference. That's the outcome of a study of a lady called Vanessa Van Edwards, who has, I don't know how many thousands of people she interviewed. She worked for many, many companies, and they found out that these are these basic poles, yeah, where charisma is happening somewhere in between. Now the thing is, okay, if you now go out and say, great, I have a lot of knowledge, so I just show my knowledge, and at the same time I smile a little bit more and look into the eyes of people, and I'm charismatic. Fantastic. Do you believe it's as easy as this? If you believe, raise your hands. No, it's not, yeah, okay. So the thing is, to reach this balance in an authentic way, in a way that comes over as something natural, there are a few different enablers, I call them. And I work mainly with these enablers when I work with my clients. So the first enabler here is self-confidence. How many of you think that charismatic people are self-confident people? I think we all perceive them like this. It is basically, you see the confidence, it's just radiating out of them, like tons of this self-confidence that comes out of them. So it's true that if you want to be charismatic, you need to be confident with yourself, and you just need to be able to stand there with your true self and bring in over all this energy that you have without thinking all the time, oh, I'm too loud, I'm too small, I'm too tall, I'm too much on the left, on the right hand side, and what should I do with my hands, and what's the next sentence, and all of these things. So just believe in yourself and having some inner peace and just doing what you can do. The second one, we get a bit deeper into this afterwards. The second one is authenticity. Extremely important for charisma. It's extremely important. So even though sometimes charismatic people seem to be nearly perfect, as if they had studied it all, you know, every single movement, everything works fluently and everything's great, they need to be fully authentic. You need to feel like this inside of you, that it comes out. Authenticity is key because body language, so any nonverbal cue, also the micro-mimics in our faces, for example, they are steered by our subconscious. You cannot handle you handle your hands. Yeah, you can train yourself with this. You can never train yourself what happens with the little wrinkles in your face at specific moments. And other people can read it subconsciously. And that means as soon as your verbal message is not congruent with the non-verbal message, as small as it might be in your face, people know it unconsciously, and they think, oh, something's not quite right here. And this is where you lose your charisma. This is where you lose, in the worst case, even your credibility. So authenticity is absolutely key. Now, authenticity very often depends on self-confidence. Because if you're not confident in yourself, if you don't like yourself, then you shy away from being authentic. So they are very strongly interrelated. And now the third one here, it's a little bit like a recipe. When you put all of this in, then you have a lot of charisma, is presence. And presence is something that you can only have with people when you no longer have to focus on yourself. So imagine you go into a situation at work where you have to present something, you're really nervous, maybe you know that people are in the room who are decision makers, who are important for you, or it's about an important deal, or you have your boss who was very critical the past few weeks, something, a stress factor like that. and you are so much focused on, oh my God, I have to get this right, and you're so much focused on what you will say, and you prepare the next slide in your head already, you know what's coming, your next sentence, you already know what's coming, and you always think about what next, then you're already all the time inward looking. So you look into yourself, and that means you don't look at your audience. So you can't see the people, and if you don't look at the audience, they feel that you're not present. You may be in the room, but you're in your own world, because you have built this facade, yeah? This is like a wall where you're completely in, oh my God, what is my presentation? What is my next slide? This is what I have to say, just to be really perfect and to get it right. And what I always say is really important. Presence is much more important than any perfect presentation which you can make. And in the online world, presence is quite hard, because the only thing that you see on screen is what you see right now, what I see right now. It's always a mix of people. Some you see and you don't see a lot because it's so small, yeah, and others you don't even see. So it's very hard to create this connection across a screen. But I think people have learned it in the past 1.5, nearly 2 years now, that you have to live with it. And that is a skill which you can learn. And charisma helps a lot, because then you have still some energy coming over, even if there's a screen. And then a last thing which I use in my article on LinkedIn, but which is less important, I think. The last thing to build charisma is passion. I mean, it's clear when you have passion for a topic, then you have conviction, you speak from your innermost conviction and all of that. But you can have charisma also without passion. It's more about your personality and how you feel on the inside. That creates charisma. If then you have passion for a topic, wow, then you blow the others away, because they feel, wow, they love what they're saying, really. But it's more about being inspiring. Passion is more about vision, being inspiring. Charisma is more it's an underlying thing. It's a bit softer. It's all the time there, and you can even turn it on and off in your own way, because even charismatic people, I don't think that they're charismatic people in the morning at 7 o'clock in the bathroom when they start brushing their teeth. Yeah? They also have their shut down moments where they don't look like the charismatic person, which we know as soon as they speak to other people. So let me now go. Well, let's maybe, do we have time for a little bit of questions here? Because if not, I go into the tools.
Yes, we have time, dear Ulrike.
Okay. So do you have any questions around this for the moment? Okay. Has anyone already tried with a course, books, little courses like this or something else, to increase the level of either self-confidence or authenticity, presence, passion, to increase one of these 4? Have you already done any courses or things like that?
I have authenticity. It is not easy, because we bombardment by a lot of messages. So sometimes I feel that I copy something. So if you want to give one more example related with that, it would be great. Thank you.
Authenticity. Authenticity is something that is extremely rare, in my opinion, what I've seen in the workplace. Really rare. So people, me including, I did that for over 20 years. I left parts of my true self at the doorstep to the office. Definitely, yeah. Because everybody has its own reasons. For me, it was like, I'm really small. Yeah, people always think I'm tall. I'm 1.57 meters. I'm really small. And so for me, it was always like, I have to play this very professional role, because if I don't want to be seen like the little girl. When you get older, then it's getting different, but you still somehow feel like a little girl. And so you try to be this professional businesswoman, and you put up a certain facade in a certain way to appear professional, to have this very slick style of speaking. And I realized that in my corporate time, I was very much like that. And when I started opening my eyes, I saw that so many people are doing this. And now that I'm no longer in the corporate world, and I only go back for consulting or for giving trainings, I realized this switch. And you can maybe observe it yourself when you go back tomorrow to work. When you speak in one-on-one with a person in the coffee corner, which doesn't happen so much anymore these days, but when you have these unofficial communications, people speak like they normally speak. Like you speak with a friend, you just speak normal. And as soon as sometimes the meeting starts, yeah, and the person opens this meeting, has a totally different way of speaking. And sometimes this feels very artificial, actually, because you see that, wow, she has put her mask of, I don't know, the project manager on now. And even though we might believe that we have to put in a certain authority or something else, but if it's not natural, then you don't have the desired results, because people realize that. They don't think about this while sitting there, because it's just normal, yeah? We see that every day. But inside of them, they're just not really touched by what you're saying and say, another task like this, it's not like, get really bored or whatever. And this is what I mean by authenticity. It's very refreshing when you see people who break the usual behavioral codes, who, for example, I give you an example of someone who is not familiar or not comfortable, let's say, not comfortable with holding a big presentation in front of a bigger group, for example. And if this person then has actually not slept for 3 nights because he was really nervous in doing this, but then he will pop up there, stand there and do as if nothing has happened, and he's completely comfortable, everything's fine, and you hear even the trembling in his voice. Yeah, you can really see it, but he's still playing this role of, I'm great here, I'm doing a great job, and I'm doing a great presentation. How refreshing would it be if the same person just came up and said, hey guys, I have to say something before I start. I haven't slept for 3 nights because I'm so nervous standing here in front of you, but I can tell you I will do my very best. And I can tell you people will love you right from the start, because you just showed that you are honest, you're yourself. Who's not perfect, great. I'm also not perfect, wonderful. And there's a connection, and the presentation will go a completely different way. People will suddenly embrace what this person is saying with much less criticism and retain than before. So that's what I mean, where authenticity is, I think, one of these standalone elements where you can really stand out of the crowd today, because many people are not authentic. So it's, I think, something very interesting. It needs courage, I agree. It's not always simple. Okay, so let's go into the 3 tools, because I think there you can have pretty concrete questions how to apply things like that. So there's so many things you can do around these topics, but I picked now, for the sake of this presentation, 3 tools which you can just do. The first one, do you see that still on screen? Yes. I'm going to take another color. Visualize. How many of you use already visualization for whatever you want to achieve in your life? If you do this, raise your arms. If you're not, you don't raise your arms. For the few I see. Visualization. We hear that sometimes from sports, for example, that great sport champions visualize how they win, before they win. That the famous penalty thing in football, that the one who is putting the ball into the goal is actually not the one who thinks about, oh my God, and what if the keeper, is it called keeper, I think, holds the ball? No, this person thinks about another thing. They think about how they will jubilate, and if they will run on the left or the right side of the goal to see their fans when they have hit the goal. That's what I think. They think beyond. They think result, and they feel the result before they have even done the job before. And that is what visualization is all about. It conditions you to do things very differently. Now, visualization is so powerful because it creates new connections in your brain. So very interesting to know about that is our brain does not make a difference between what we truly live, our real experiences, and between what we only imagine. When we imagine something vividly enough so that you create an emotion while you imagine it in your head, for your brain this is recorded as a true experience. It's exactly the same. And that means you have a biological thing happening in your brain. When you visualize something so intensively that you can feel it, then your brain has done something between the neurons that were involved in this kind of thought process. And when you do it often enough, you train your brain on this is a reality, because that happened to her already 20 times in the past 2 weeks. Wow, yeah. So you can like nearly create a bit of a habit out of something that you have never done. And you can use it, and I do this very often, especially when it comes to fulfilling my big goals, and when it comes to having to master a difficult situation, for example, a big presentation, a difficult talk, something where I know, oh my God, I might be really nervous and I might fall back into the trap of not being myself, not being confident, not being present, and all of these things. So let's go into the situation. And that's what I do then. That means, imagine, for example, you have a situation, and you all have that. You have a situation in the next week or in the next 2-3 weeks where, it's a difficult team meeting coming up. I have a difficult presentation to hold. I have a difficult conversation, maybe just a one-on-one with someone, which I'm already pushing back for a while. Do you have this kind of situation coming up? I guess you do. Everybody has. We all have that in our life regularly. So when you have such a situation where, I will be nervous a few days ahead at least, or even more, then what you can do, and start the earliest the better, you visualize it. You imagine the situation, and you imagine it exactly in the way like you want it to be, exactly like that. And you imagine the best positive outcome you can imagine. And if you imagine and visualize, you really need to close your eyes and take 10 minutes or so, maybe even 15. You can stay there for 2 hours if you want as well. It's up to you. But you need to take quite a few minutes, because you really need to bring it to life inside of yourself. And what is important when you visualize, you go into the situation, you imagine it, be as precise as possible. If you have never visualized, take the time that you imagine, if it's happening in a meeting room, for example, that you close your eyes, and you might even, while having the eyes closed, moving your head left, right, that you look around in this meeting room and you see the chairs and you see the window, and maybe there's a plant and maybe there's a flip chart, and you see really every single detail. You visualize how it looks like. And if you don't know where it happens, visualize something. Yeah, something else, a room where you think this would be probably the room. And then you imagine the people which are there, where they're sitting, and then last not least, you place yourself into this room. And as soon as you place yourself into the place, make sure that from that moment on, you see the situation out of your own eyes. Many people that visualize don't do that, and that's a big mistake. If you imagine a future situation and you look at it from an observation perspective, so you step back and you see yourself acting there, your subconscious believes that this is happening to someone else. Very simply, even if you see yourself, but your subconscious thinks there's someone else here. So look at the situation out of your own eyes, exactly like you would see it. And then just go through it. When you want to you imagine I start speaking, I'm feeling relaxed, I'm so well about myself, I'm sure about my presentation, I know everything so well, so relaxed, people can come in, I smile, I see, wow, the others are smiling as well. You imagine a positive reaction of people, which in turn makes you feel positive, and so on and so forth. Create a totally positive cinema in your head. It's really cinema. And as soon as you start feeling good about this and feeling like, wow, this situation was great, I came out of it, it was a full success, I feel wonderful, you can stop and that's it. And you then do it the next day again. And each time you do it, you will see it's becoming very normal and very fast that you get into the same emotional state where in the first time it was really hard to, to find this good feeling, But in the 10th time, I can say already, it's big difference. And when suddenly this day comes, when you have done maybe your visualization 3 times before, 20 times before, whatever you had the time to do, you will see it's different. You come into this room and your subconscious knows what to do because you have trained your brain and you have made even real connections here, what is happening. And you will come in with another energy. Not with maybe the same anxiety, not with the same nervosity which you might have, because you have lived this already. You have trained yourself on this. You're coming in, you say, okay, and then you can see what's happening, and you will see that this non-verbal thing will happen immediately. Actually, when we meet someone for the first time, not for the first time in our lives, but when you come into a meeting room, for example, in 17 milliseconds, people judge what your mood is. 17 milliseconds. Our subconscious knows it already. They have just get some energy of you, bam, they know, oh, good mood, bad mood, oh, anxious, oh, yeah. And even if you don't have the words in your head, but your subconscious knows it, and your reactions, the reactions will be the same. So this whole nonverbal thing starts to happen. It's a bit magic, actually. It's so simple. It just takes a bit of time. It's really worth it. The second one, and that comes into your way when you do this. The second one, it is about disempowering negative thoughts. So when you do let's stick with the visualization first before we go into this a bit more general. When you visualize, obviously, there will the thought come out. Yeah, that's only cinema. Anyway, that's not true. Yeah, you're just lying to yourself. That will never happen. Yeah, it will come up. Yeah, little inner voice telling you, no, never ever this will happen like this, and so on and so forth. Negative thoughts are something which we have all day long. If you had to say what is the percentage of negative thoughts that people, you, me, everybody in this world, in average have every day, the percentage, how many of you would say it's over 50% negative thoughts? Raise your arms if you think that. How many of you would say it's over 70% negative thoughts? Actually, studies have shown, and many studies out there around this, but they have shown that 80% in average of our thoughts are negative. 80% across different cultures. 80 is crazy. Yeah, crazy. We spend our whole day criticizing ourselves, saying, oh, when you forget your keys at home, what do you think about yourself? You will treat yourself like an idiot. You will say, I'm an idiot, I forgot my key already. I mean, you would never treat your best friend like this, ever, would you? Ever. But we treat ourselves like this, no problem, every single day. We say to ourselves things like that we're stupid, and that we forgot this again, and it's always the same, and yeah, okay. So all these kinds of thoughts. And then we have these more underlying thoughts that happen all the time. A nagging feeling of worry, of anxiety, of guilt maybe, of shame even. Shame you probably feel because that's pretty strong. But this nagging thing of worry, for example, it's all around all the time. Worrying of coming too late, worrying that this will not happen, worrying that that he or she will not call on time, whatever. I mean, there's always something to worry about. And 80% of negative thoughts. It's really crazy. So there's a lot to do. Means 80% of potential as well. Let's turn it around in a positive sense. Now, a negative thought, something that is related to a situation where you think, I would like to be charismatic. Yeah, I would like to be someone when I come into a room where I want to convince an audience about my ideas, then I would like to feel differently. And if you go into this, starting with a specific situation, instead of starting with your whole self, because that's buncher, start with a specific situation. Then you can say, okay, I imagine the situation, but I know that I will be worried before. And I know that this nagging thing is coming into my mind when I start to train myself and to imagine that I'm better and that I can do this differently. When you have a negative thought, the natural reaction, if you don't want it, is that you try to push it away. You're really pushing it away, literally. So you will then think, now I worry again about this thing. I don't want to worry. Go away. I don't want to worry. By doing this, what do you think then actually? You think, I don't want to worry. Yeah, that means you think about the worry again. And you give it even more energy. You can imagine it maybe like I don't know. Yeah, I think let me compare it with my cat, which he just did before I started this call. He wants some specific food and he wants lots of it, and I don't want to give it to him. So if I try to push him aside all the time when he comes to want to have this food, push, what will he do? He will come again and again and again. Whereas when I just look at him and say, okay, you're here, you want your food, I don't care. You can stay here, but I don't care. He'll give up. And that is exactly what is happening with these nagging little things. If you have the worry, but it will not work. I try to condition myself that it will work, but it won't. Just look at it it's a very interesting mental exercise to change your inner perspective when you have something negative popping up. A big fear as well, maybe. Really, when you're really fearful of something specific, try innerly to like step back and to look at it as if that was an object in you. So like if you were a scientist, yeah, who says, there's the worry, I know you, you're here, how does that feel? Okay, well, I know how it feels, so what? And you try to look at it a bit from a distance, create like an inner distance. I don't know if you've ever done that. It is not so difficult. And it's not about giving it energy or focus. It's rather about, yeah, okay, you're here, I acknowledge you're here. It's like acknowledging it rains. You can't do anything about it, so what? Yeah, okay, it rains. So it's a bit this kind of nonchalance, if you understand that term, where you just have it. And by this you can disempower the strong negative thoughts which you realize. For some underlying beliefs, it's much more difficult because you don't see it. That's a completely different story. We can maybe have a chat about this afterwards. The third thing, and then we open for questions. The third thing, this is really the one I love most.
Ulrike, Gamze has one question, please.
Yeah? Immediately?
For the second one, I think.
Well, the second one, yes? So I continue. I just write this down.
No, for the related with the second part, for that reason, we want to ask now.
Okay, yes.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So my question is, can you give some examples where we need to shift the balance between warmth and competence and power? For example, sometimes you need to show more power, sometimes you need to show more warmth. And how do you do this?
Concrete, there's so many examples. I mean, any kind of situation, it depends on who you are. I would say, let's start maybe with where you have too much of this. Yeah. You have too much in this side. Or do we have better the other way? Do you have a situation where you have too much of this?
Yes. So some cultures needs to be more power, for example, or some people you need to create really authority to be able to, like for dominant people, for example. Yeah,
that's right. That is right. That is right. Okay, wow. Okay, so we're getting into something, getting many layers. Yeah, that's true. If you have if you're working with different cultures, sorry, my voice is not great today, I have a cold. So if you're working with different cultures, then yes, you have to adapt each time. That is true. Nonetheless, what I realized is that even with cultures where you think you should not show many emotions or where they don't show any emotions, if you show, with emotions I mean a bit more warmth, just put in more heart into what you're saying, I realized that it works even better. Even if they at the beginning find, if for example, Chinese or Japanese people find this very funny. Yeah, they think Europeans, I can read you all, whatever you say, it's all written over your face. Yeah, so they told me it's all written over your face, whereas Europeans found me at that time very cold and very closed. Yeah, because I was rather like this in my corporate life, and they found that very funny. And I realized then that the way of just being more and sticking to your way of being, even if it's not their way of being, but doing this in a way where you even address it is quite interesting, because that is a surprising thing. Yeah, because then suddenly you address it and you say, hey guys, I know that. I know that you find it really funny that I show on my face emotions and whatever, but I do it anyway, because I like it. And really, I mean, it's quite refreshing when you just address things instead of trying to appear more powerful, but innerly you feel that you just put a layer on which is not yours, because they will also feel that it's not yours. They will feel that it's not your true power. They will not see if you say I'm like this and now I have a power until here, they will see that you're like this. They will just see it. So I think addressing it is really refreshing. And that brings me back to here. Authenticity is Absolutely. USP, unique selling point, something that is rare. Yeah, even with different cultures. And it doesn't mean that you cannot be sensitive about certain things, obviously, yeah, that's clear. But it's important, I think, to stay with who you are and maybe just saying it. Another question around this? So far.
Thank you.
Then I continue with the last one. Last one's very important. Let go perfectionism. So, let go perfectionism is really the one thing that every single client I meet needs to do. Some come to me and they know it, and they come because of that, because they really suffer, because they're so heavily perfectionist that it's really difficult for them in their own lives. And many others realize quickly that actually, wow, it's all related to my own expectations, and I set such a level of expectations to myself that I'm never satisfied. If you're perfectionist, I was a bloody perfectionist, I still am, and I all the time have to control this pattern inside of myself because it's there. Yeah. So perfectionism means that you're never satisfied with yourself, ever, because you are never perfect. Nobody is ever, I mean, nobody's perfect is a sentence that is old like the mankind probably, but it's so true. Nobody is. And nobody believes it, that nobody is, because everybody believes that some other people are just perfect. They're not, and they also don't believe that they are. So nobody's perfect. And if you think that you have to be perfect, then you have to be perfect in all roles you play. You know, if you're a mother, women, for example, this double role often, they want to be perfect everywhere. Men who have also different roles outside of their jobs, everything has to be perfect. Yeah. And if you do this, then you logically have to criticize yourself a lot. This comes back to building a lot of negative thoughts of yourself. So even if you have achieved a project greatly, you have good results, you have maybe even outstanding results, but you see that the last 5%, nobody has seen that this wasn't perfect, but you have seen it. And you tell yourself, yeah, okay, it was good, but it wasn't really, this thing here, it wasn't right, the last little thing which I did, it wasn't good. You will never be satisfied. You criticize yourself, you lower your self-esteem. By this, you lower your self-confidence. And here we go. No self-confidence, because perfectionism. That's the biggest enemy of self-confidence, you can imagine. And perfectionism does not help, because, and now I will relate it to these different things. Let's do this with the blue. The perfectionism, for example, as said, if you let it go, you have so much higher chances to be confident about yourself. So much higher chances. Just don't be... You have these tremendous expectations towards yourself. Just go down. 80% is good enough. Better done than perfect. Whatever, a mantra, something like that. It's just okay. The perfectionism, when you let the perfectionism down, it also helps you to be authentic. What I said earlier on is what is also happening in meetings is that you are not yourself because you believe you're not perfect. Because you have weaknesses. I have weaknesses, tons of them. We all have weaknesses. That's okay. The thing is, we don't think it's okay. We think we have to be perfect. So we are not authentic. We hide away that we were nervous. We hide away that we are still nervous. Or we hide away, I don't know, whatever else. I mean, you just try to build this perfect facade. And that's why we're not authentic anymore. So let go perfectionism. It has a huge influence also on your presence. And that's what I mentioned before, but you better understand the mechanism. It is when you want to be perfect, you focus totally on yourself all the time. All the time. You observe yourself. You're like a critic standing beside yourself and observing. Did I say that right? Did I stumble over my words? Was my voice loud enough? How did I look like? Is my skirt long, short enough? How am I dressed well enough? Oh, maybe I'm overdressed. Oh, my hair's not right. Oh, no, I have this thing here. Oh my God. And permanently. And what's happening? You're inward looking, you're with you're not with the audience. You can't see them. So what I'm doing today, I don't think it's perfect. And because I have not trained it, I just say what comes to my mind. Because I prefer to focus to look on this bloody little screen with little pictures. because it's so nice to see Gamses, if I pronounce it right, smile, for example. And it is just great to connect, yeah. And for the sake of maybe losing my track, and where was I? What was my last note? Yeah, fine, okay, not a problem. Presence is makes really a difference, so much more pleasant for you as a speaker as well. And this is the same for the other ones. The negative thoughts, obviously, it's an obvious thing that negative thoughts, how do we address this best? Join here, the self-confidence piece. Obviously, the negative thoughts, yeah, diminish your self-confidence, that's clear. The negative thoughts also then, because this is related as well. I mean, good self-confidence usually leads to a higher authenticity because you believe you're good enough. If you believe you're good enough, you show up as the person you are. So this is very strongly related. And if you go into the visualization thing, that, for example, also obviously helps you with the confidence because you have lived the situation in a very positive way. You have seen yourself, how it's when you're great. But it also helps you, wherever visualize, it helps you a lot here, with the presence. Because as you have trained yourself so much on this situation, you don't have to observe yourself so much anymore when you are in the situation, and you can just let go a bit and be more present again. So this is how this all can help you to create more of this. The passion I didn't touch here because passion is very special to everyone, and it is something that you have for a topic or you don't have it for a topic. But the other three are these basic settings which we have also inside of ourselves, and that help us a lot in our private life, not only in our professional life and not only in a specific situation. So they are very important. Yeah, so that is roughly it, what I wanted to share with you today. So I hope that I'm not perfect, so I'm looking at my notes if I forgot something. I didn't, I think. So, yeah. Do you have questions, a situation you want to share, something concrete, how you want to apply it, whatever you want to know? Just ask. By the way, if you have done the assessment or if you have not done it and you do it later on, and if you look at your questions, the questions in this assessment are structured around these topics here most of the time. It's often around authenticity, around presence, how much you focus on the preparation versus I focus on being there, for example. So there's nothing wrong about preparation, obviously, but at the end you have to be there. When it comes to charisma, something that because I have a podcast as well, and sometimes I have really nice interviews there, it's called Charisma Hacks. It wasn't Charisma Hacks, I have two podcasts. One is called Charisma Hacks. And the Charisma Hacks podcast, I recently, or very early on, I had a very good speaker, a lady from the US, and she said something that I never forget because it's so true and it's very simple. You need to be interested to be interesting. And this is all about this presence piece, this fact that just get interested in the others and first of all, connect before you speak. Most people speak and then they connect, or they hope to connect while speaking somehow. But just before connect, it is this little trick when you go on stage and you just say nothing for 5 seconds. 5 seconds, extremely long to say nothing on stage. Yeah, but this way of first of all come in when there's a room, you're lucky enough to have a true room, physical room, and to feel a bit of the energy. Feel the audience, look into the eyes of some people and just say nothing. Connect by saying nothing. There's nothing more powerful. And then people will just wait that you finally open your mouth and say something. This connection piece, or starting your speech, not immediately with a topic, but with connecting somehow, asking a question right away before you even start, before you introduce yourself. Something I always do, and people are always surprised. Normally people start with, hello, I'm happy to be here, and I'm so-and-so, I'm doing this and that. I said, why should they bother? They don't bother who you are. They come because you have something to share. So I always share, first of all, what I have to share. That's also interesting. Start with the topic. What's in it for them, not for you? And then if there's a bit of time, you share who you are. Because then they might be interested if you're lucky enough in who you are, if they don't know you yet. Yeah. Any questions? Did you like it? I now openly ask this question.
I like it very much. May I ask another question?
Yeah, sure.
So always it works for me. For example, fake it until you